strange looks. Once you're broken, once you lived in, with the high words, with the strange look. Once you're broken, once you lived in, this is all I've got. This loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. This is all I've got. This loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you lived in, once you said you love.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with The Strange News. The former head of Russia's space agency raised eyebrows over the weekend when he suggested that the United States did not actually land on the moon. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's talk show radio, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, the home of Night Dreams Talk Radio, with Gary Anderson, syndicated worldwide. Paranormal Talk Radio, like you remember.
Well, it is Friday. We made it here to Friday. 20 degrees today. Now it's 18 degrees down at the compound. JC, what is the temperature where you're at in Ohio?
Well, it says it's 44, but it's wrong on the computer because on my phone it's like 25, but it's cold. But like it's cold.
Yeah, I opened up the door today and there was actually ice on our screen door, which has glass in it. Yeah, and the ice wasn't on the outside; it was on the inside.
Are them goldfish froze yet? That's the question.
I was told they were ice cubes.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, you make a nice martini with them.
Yeah, they got a toilet bowl you can buy now that is aquarium. Now it looks like the fish are swimming in your toilet bowl, but they're not, or the tank, I should say. What it is, it's a illusion. The fish are swimming between the tank and the glass in front. But, could you imagine you would have fish swimming behind you?
Okay. Could you imagine if you were a fish and you had to live that existence?
Good thing they can't smell, I tell you that much. Tonight we got a guest on. I really, really enjoyed where he starred in a lot of shows. He originally started out on a show called The Streets of San Francisco. It seems like we've had a lot of actors on their show. That's where they start out on. The Streets of San Francisco. I can tell you that was a good show. He started out there, and then he made was in a movie right after that, and then Little House on the Prairie. And I'll tell you, things have changed. I was talking to Dean before we went on the air. Things have changed. My grandkids, they watch The Little House on the Prairie, and they watch some of the older shows like Andy Griffith and stuff like that. And maybe it's because I influenced them, but it's really bad because one of my older kids or two of my older kids got in a lot of trouble, and because they played a lot of video games growing up, and they were into these horror type movies. And I tell you, I think it does a lot of damage to young kids when they grow up and they see blood and killings and people chopping heads off and stuff like that. It's unhealthy. When shows like Little House on the Prairie and a few other shows that were out at that time frame, it made you feel comfortable. There was a community where they had to all work together. And that is what is interesting. So let's find out a little bit more about our guests right here. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. Nice used previously enjoyed vehicles. Come on down to We Fleece 'em You Motors, a division of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, where we treat all of our customers like family.
Dad?
Shut up, I'm working here.
Sorry.
Now then, all of our previously enjoyed used vehicles might even have an engine. And if you're asking about our warranty, we've got a warranty so ironclad, we fail to see any reason to put it in writing. And at We Fleece 'em You Motors, we stand by our unwritten warranty, no matter how long it takes for you to give up. So come on down to We Fleece 'em You Motors, formerly Miracle Motors, where if it runs, it's a miracle. If you can find a better looking car, I'll eat a bug. Hurry, hurry, hurry on down and get that dream car that runs in your dreams. We're located at 727 Paymore Fleecem Avenue, next to Great Fleecem Bank. Police not welcome. Dean Butler was born on May 20th, 1956, in Prince George, BC, Canada. He's a producer and actor, best known to audiences for his portrayal of Almanzo Wilder from 1979 to 1983 on the iconic pioneer drama Little House on the Prairie. He co-starred in the feature film Desert Hearts, played Moondoggie in the syndicated The New Gidget, and Buffy's dad, Hank Summers, on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. On Broadway, Dean played Rapunzal's prince in the original company of Into the Woods, toured internationally as Tony in West Side Story, and appeared with Carol Burnett in a regional production of Company. From 2011 to 2020, Dean was the senior producer of NBC Golf's Emmy-nominated entertainment sports series Feherty. In 2024, Dean will be serving as the producer of the Little House on the Prairie 50th Anniversary Cast Reunion and Festival in Simi Valley, and will release his first book, a memoir, and a look back at 50 years of Little House entitled Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond. Dean lives in Los Angeles, and this year will celebrate his 23rd wedding anniversary to actress Katherine Cannon.
Well, Dean, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing? I'm not hearing you, Dean. Okay, Dean, we don't have any audio. Okay, let's see if we can get his audio here. Okay, can you hear me, Dean?
I'm going to unplug that. Do you have me now?
I have you now.
Do you have me now?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Okay.
You got me?
I do hear you. So I've unplugged my headphones, Gary. We're just talking computer audio now.
Oh, that's you're sounding good.
Okay. I'm so sorry. That was such a wonderful mellifluous introduction. I don't think I've ever experienced that before.
Well, you can send me a check for $8 million and we'll be even there. But yeah, I find what you've done career-wise is outstanding. We were talking about before we went on the air. You started out on the streets of San Francisco. How did that come about?
Well, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so if you're trying to go professional, you have to embrace the opportunities that are there. And in San Francisco during that time when I was growing up, contemplating turning pro, would have been 76, 77, 78 in that time frame. There weren't a lot of options of things that you could do, but because San Francisco is such a photogenic city, there's always something shooting in the city. And at that time, the show that was really the centerpiece of that was Streets of San Francisco. And to have Carl Malden and Michael Douglas working, at least it started that way with Carl Malden and Michael Douglas, and then it became Michael left and it became Richard Hatch in that part. But I mean, so well done. I mean, Carl Malden is one of the great actors of his time, and to have him doing something like a weekly series was just, what a blessing for weekly series, because you're dealing with someone who's really fantastic. So that was just one of those situations where actors walk into rooms and you audition, and you're either hired or you're not. And it was a great opportunity for me to just be in the presence of those guys. And get a chance to say a few words of dialogue that earned me my Screen Actors Guild card. I was very, very honored to have that chance.
And he was one of the first of the famous actors really to have a TV show. Going back, we had Donna Reed, we had, Lucille Ball, we've had other ones, but he was like one of the main actors that actually had a show like that.
Well, I think, and that's what, when you're talking about Donna Reed and Lucille Ball, that was an earlier era.
Right.
And, Streets was really, I want to say 74, 75, 76, 77. I mean, something, it's sort of mid 70s was that time. And so he was, as someone crossing over from a career in films, and he'd had a wonderful career in films, to transition over into television. I mean, today those transitions happen all the time. People go back and forth from the big screen to television all the time. In those days, that didn't happen so much. There was really a dividing line for actors in those years, where you either were working on television or you were working in feature films, which was the coveted position to be in. But Carl Malden was older at that point. He was obviously so skilled, so respected, and he saw an opportunity to have, a really nice capping of his career in that situation. And I'm sure, I can't imagine that Carl Malden didn't do extremely well in that situation and really helped create some very entertaining television. He was so terrific on Streets.
Yeah, and his co-host, being, Kirk Douglas, son. I mean, it was a big stepping stone for him too.
Yeah, I mean, no, exactly. And, yes, I think Michael Douglas was almost fresh out of college when he got that. He was very, very new when he got that. And he just had this natural, easy quality. And I think he has said through the years, having the opportunity, of course, what a pedigree he had being Kirk Douglas's son. But for him to have a chance to work day in and day out with someone like a Carl Malden, who was so rock solid, what a gift that is. I mean, what a great example to have in so many ways, not only in the context of the work, but in the work habit, in the way of approaching the work. Carl Malden was so terrific, and Michael Douglas was, he was awesome on the show, and what a treat. Before I did the part where I got my first little lines, I also did a lot of extra work on the show, and one of my first featured extra deals was, I don't know if you know the story, Michael Douglas left the show at a certain point, which opened the door to Richard Hatch. And apparently, the way the story was structured is he was wounded in a police incident and was rushed to the hospital. And I'm one of the guys on the gurney racing Michael Douglas down the hall as he's lying there, unconscious on the gurney. And it was one of the first times I had actually seen myself doing something on camera. It's just because as an extra, you generally don't get seen. I mean, you maybe see an arm or you see a shoulder or you see, you're just there. This was a silent bit, as it was called at that time, probably still is called that. And so those of us on the gurney, and there were probably 3 or 4 of us, racing Michael Douglas down the halls of San Francisco General was pretty cool. Right? And he was so great, too. I mean, between takes, he, got up on the gurney, sat up after he sat up and talked to everybody and told stories. And he was great. Really, really fun person.
How old are you when you got to the acting bug into you? When you wanted to get into acting, how old were you?
I think I was probably 15, something like that, 15, 16, as it was for most people. It was high school. And, when I was really much younger, I was very, very shy and, just not very comfortable. And I couldn't memorize lines or stand up in front of people and do anything. And the thing I always remember is in 8th grade being in an English class play and being given a part, like a 3-line part as a preacher. I couldn't tell you what the play was. It was something that was a play that was crafted for classrooms. I had 3 lines, forgot 2 of them in the performance, and was just like, this is not for me. And it wasn't until I saw later I guess a couple of years later, I saw our high school production of My Fair Lady and saw the young man who was playing Henry Higgins in that production, and watching him, this guy's name is Warren Kelly was his name, and who absolutely commanded the stage. It was so incredible to watch this from a peer who could be so effective on the stage. And I watched this, and for reasons that were, who knows why we think the things we think when we think them, but I thought I could do that. I don't know. There was really no basis for me saying that I think I can do that, but there was something so magnetic about watching him work. And I think that's how it happens for a lot of young people. You see somebody that inspires you doing this work, and if it's a peer, then it's very powerful because you can see yourself in that person's life and what they're doing, and if you can see yourself, it can be a real boost to take a shot at something. So it was really 15, 16 years old, and then I went off to college and did some shows there. And after my freshman year in college, I reached out to a high school friend's father who was the president of a major San Francisco advertising agency, and told him of my interest. And he'd seen a production I'd been in high school. I was the waspiest Tevye the Dairyman ever in a production of Fiddler on the Roof. And he was great. He just said, I love what you did. I'll introduce you to one of San Francisco's best agents. And he did. He introduced me to a woman named Anne Brebner. Anne was this wonderful New Zealander. One of the really cool things that she did, the first reading of, I think it was American Graffiti in her office in San Francisco, because they were just reading the script to get a sense of what it is. And Anne was one of the proponents of that, helped support that project early on. It was it was really fun. And so she worked with me, and I started doing commercials, and that's how it begins. It's just little things that you start to get to do. And it was a lot of fun, Gary, a lot of fun.
Again, what would your advice be to somebody who is young that wants to get into acting nowadays?
I'm not going to have a really. You're gonna this. I hope I'm going to throw a little cold water on people.
Okay.
And but I think it's what I've come to say to people is, if there's nothing else you can imagine yourself doing in your life, if you can't see yourself doing anything else, then you have to give it a shot. You've got to step in and try it. But conversely, Gary, if there's anything else you can see yourself doing other than acting, do that. Because and look, most people who step in, that's all they can see at that moment, because it's just like it's this huge personal risk that you're taking to, the rejection level is huge. And so, you have to be willing to step in. You've got to be willing to endure the rejection. But if you have to do it, you have to do it. And so you're going to find a way through that. I guess so. On the positive side, know this is something, if for young people today who are considering this, know this is something you really, really want to do, because it's not going to be easy. It's going to test you, but if you love it, you'll know, because you'll have the perseverance to continue. If you don't love it, you'll know that too. And if the rejection really stings you and you just can't face that again, well, that's going to be your answer, because you just won't. And rejection is, the best people, Gary, look, the very best people, they're offered, or the strongest, biggest careers, they're offered one thing after another and they do the work. But as most people are climbing into it, if you can get 5% of what you auditioned for, you're doing pretty well. That's pretty tough numbers, 5%. And then you have to face the fact that at any given time, when you're an actor, 90% of the people doing this, and it's probably even a higher percentage than that, maybe it's 95%, are not working at any given time. They're waiting for that opportunity. It's a very aspirational career. And you have to know, when you're chasing it, you have to know you want it more than anything else that you could possibly want, or it's just not, you have no shot of making it work.
Well, it's even like that in broadcasting. I've been in broadcasting going on 52 years. And, I got to the point I was retired, and a good friend of mine who's no longer with us, I don't know if you ever heard of Art Bell. He's the one.
Oh my God, Art Bell. Well, when I hear your opener, Gary, you're a conspiracy guy. You don't sound like a conspiracy. Art Bell sounded like he was dripping with conspiracy. I don't hear that from you.
No, I hopefully I sound like your friend.
Yeah, but is this, so you do this teaser at the beginning, or your opener is like conspiracy, and was I not hearing that correctly? Are you saying you're not a conspiracy guy?
Well, I do conspiracy, but I do it lightly.
Okay,
very lightly.
Yeah, it's okay. Soft conspiracy.
Soft conspiracy.
Okay.
But, I find the same thing. I started in broadcasting when I was like 15 years old, and then worked in small stations, work all the way up to, what I am now. I was retired. And what I find, the older you get, the harder it is to get jobs.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, of course it is. Absolutely it is. There's less competition and it's harder. I mean, there's more competition younger than you are, but among your peers, there's less competition, but it's harder because people, they're looking for, everyone wants the new thing. They want the new toy. I mean, that's part of the magic of coming into this, is if someone thinks you can be that shiny new object, you can get a shot that you might not get when you're older.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a mixed look. It's a mixed thing. it's a mixed thing. But how cool for you that you're retired, and then what? So how did that happen?
I was retired for 10 years, and my friend called me up and said, you need to get back into it. And, and I did. And I tell you, it was a struggle the first year or two. And I enjoy it now more than ever, because I've been on some big stations across the country in the past. And I tell you what, I enjoy doing what I do now because I don't have to worry about, punching a clock, somebody telling me what to do on my show. But, I got a question from you. Artificial intelligence is now coming into movies.
Yeah.
I was actually watching on one of the cable companies the other night, a movie, and about 20 minutes into it, I realized those aren't real people. It's all AI. What is going to happen in the future? Do you feel it's going to affect what you do and other people do acting?
What were you serious? I mean, are you doing soft conspiracy here, or you actually really were watching something that you came to feel like, oh my God, it's not real people?
I don't know what it was. It was a movie, and all of a sudden I realized, hey, this is not real people. It's generated.
Yeah, that's interesting. What was there was some story. There was a story on yesterday about, well, look, as far as AI goes, it's coming. I mean, it's here, and it's only going to become more prevalent because it lowers the cost of doing things. But I think, the actors, the directors, the writers in this last round of negotiations or of contracts with the Producers Guild tried to throw up some barriers to the expansion of AI to get some kind of control over the use of people's images, the scanning of people's images, whatever, to create performances that didn't really happen. And I think they were successful doing that, but this is coming. I mean, you can guaranteed. I always think of the story I always think about, or the scenario I always think about, because I love Jimmy Stewart. And every year I watch It's a Wonderful Life, and I think of that period in Jimmy Stewart's career, which was a very powerful time in his career. And you can just imagine, between AI and colorizing and all the things that are possible, if you could go through and scan all of Jimmy Stewart's early performances, you could do movies, you could do all new movies with Jimmy Stewart. Of course, it wouldn't be Jimmy Stewart, but as far as the audience is concerned, it's that vibe, it's there. And there may need to be some fine tuning of things with dialogue, and you get an impersonator who can, smooth out some things vocally, but anything's possible. And you wonder, well, where is this going to leave actors and writers and directors? Where's it going to leave everybody? And I think it's a very fair question. It's highly concerning, but it's not just, Gary, it's not just on camera people or directors. I mean, this is lawyers. This is where surgeons can be replaced by AI controlled robots. I mean, there's a lot that can happen here. And, I think it's clearly, as people who really are in the know about this, we're going to be grappling with this, and it's going to be a very intense grappling because AI is coming at us very quickly. And as human beings, how do we protect ourselves from this technology or maintain? I mean, I think the thing that I see is so much of our humanity is about what we do and how we contribute to the world. And if that is taken away from us by forces by this technology that could, in fact, do everything better than we can, and just be faster, cheaper, whatever you want, the AI can do it. What is our purpose in the world? And I think these are obviously questions that, as humanity, we're going to be grappling with these questions, and we don't know the answer yet. But this is a great conspiracy topic for you, and it's more than soft conspiracy. That's like I think that's, and it's not even conspiracy. I mean, conspiracy I think is sort of like hoax stuff. It's like I just it's not real, but someone wants to make it real. AI is real. And it is coming, and we do have to grapple with it as a society of human beings who want to have purpose and value in the world.
I agree with you. We need to take a break. When we come back, let's start talking about Little House on the Prairie, how you got involved with it, and maybe you can tell us what it was like filming it. Allison told us some cool things too, so maybe you can too. So we'll be right back after this break with Dean, so stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website for more information about Dean at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. We'll be right back.
Now is the time more than ever to get that hometown water. Freshly recycled with that great recycled taste you will love. Just ask any smart person you know.
I love hometown water, and I'm a what word is this? Rhodes Scholar.
While you're getting that great tasting water, get a fresh brick of that great tasting meaty Soylent Green, made with real recycled man-made, we're not kidding, meat. That's always great tasting and good for you. It's endorsed by everyone.
Hello. As a 100% real female woman, I happily speak on behalf of all genuine non-male women-style ladies and say these recycled, easy-to-drink and eat products are totally great, and if you don't buy them, you'll be struck down and sentenced to eternal damnation. Thank you.
Recycled hometown water and recycled meaty Soylent Green man-made man-meat is available at
in the 38 states with no common sense where this is still legal.
your nearest farm fresh markets. Pick some up today.
Batteries not included, void in Nebraska.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with The Strange News. A woman in England was left scratching her head when she gazed up at the sky and spotted a long vertical black line extending from the ground up to the heavens. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Deep in the Amazon jungle, one man.
Hi, I'm Stan Gordon. Check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, let me finish. One man.
Hi, I'm Mark Muncy. Check out Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, do you mind? One man, naked and afraid.
I'm losing my mind.
You and me both, sister. One man, Gary the Big Guy. No boats, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury.
Hey, any more and you'll have to pay a royalty.
Okay, that's it.
Hit it.
From the summer vacation studios deep in the Amazon jungle, from that tree right there. See at the top, he's swinging.
I'm losing my mind.
Twice? All right. Coming to you live for now on Night Dreams Talk Radio, naked and afraid, Gary the Big Guy Anderson.
Wow. Boy, we are back, and I tell you, I got rope burn, some swinging. I'll tell you tonight, we got a great guest. We have Dean Butler. We're going to talk now about Little House on the Prairie. Dean, we are back, and I'm out of breath because I just had to swing all those branches.
Well, Gary the Big Guy, you've got some very creative production going on your show here. This is it's like, what is all this coming at? That takes a lot of time and thought to create all this craziness.
Well, I'm crazy. That's all I can say.
Well, it's like, what is he saying? What was that? It's fun, Gary. I mean, you're having fun. There's no doubt about it. I hear the fun. It comes right through the speaker.
Well, thank you. You know, here, I'll be honest with you. I try to make radio fun. You know, radio, as you know, has gone canned. It's not like it used to be at all. And you know, what I try to do is bring radio back like of the 70s, 80s, and 90s and kind of merge it into, well, what century we're in today.
Yeah, right. Right. Good for you.
Well, here you were. You just did all these other things, you know. How did you get involved with Little House on the Prairie?
So Little House came about in 1979. I had done, that you referenced earlier, this movie called Forever for CBS. It was based on the Judy Blume novel Forever, which was very controversial for its time. It was a first love story. And so I was able to, because of that, I was able to secure a really fabulous agent in Los Angeles. And we auditioned for a lot of things and, got some offers, but this agent, who was so wonderfully respected, just said, no, those things, you're not going to do whatever those things were. You need to wait for something that is something that's special, that I think is right for you. And when the Little House auditions came up, she called me and told me about this. And she said, if you are fortunate enough to get offered this show, you will do this show because it's really good. She used to watch it every Monday night and cry. As so many people did watching Little House, she cried. And so she loved it. She loved Michael Landon, this wonderful actor, director, writer, that she would tell me. And I had not really seen the show before I auditioned for it. And before I started doing it, I had not really ever watched it. I mean, I was, living in the community, so I saw promos, as everybody did. I mean, NBC was running promos for the show all the time, and you'd read about it in TV Guide, or you'd see things. So I sort of knew what the vibe was, but I didn't really know what the show was when I went in to audition for it. And I think it's, this really comes down to, Gary, and I think anybody who's done is a performer. You're a performer. I'm a performer. You talk to performers all the time. Performers, you get when you're auditioning, I really believe, and I speaking in terms of being an actor, you get the parts you're supposed to get. There's somebody hears something, sees something in you in a situation that's just the essential nature of who you are. And casting directors, when they're looking at actors, are looking, they want to see a level of skill, but they also want to see that you as a human being could fit into this world, that you could be a part of this, that you would be a believable addition to this universe of people and characters. And I'm just so grateful that Susan Sukman, who was our casting director of Little House, saw that in me and invited me to come in and read for Michael Landon. And I did. And it took about 2 weeks after the reading for NBC to actually make an offer, which was because he basically offered me the part in the room. I mean, I finished reading for him. We talked for a few more minutes, and I was getting ready to leave. And I'll never forget this. He said, "So what are you doing, like May 15th or something is, what it was." And I said, instead of saying, "Well, I'm available," I said, "Well, I'll be going through final exams at that point." I was finishing my senior year at University of the Pacific, where I had done all my undergraduate work. And he said to me, after I told him that, he said, "Well, I think we can wait another week." Now, that to me sounded like an offer in the room, but it wasn't actually an offer, but it certainly sounded that way. And it was similar to a different situation I'd had a year or so earlier, where I had essentially been offered a really wonderful part in the room and by the time I got home, they'd offered it to somebody else. But the executive producer basically at the end of the reading said to me and to the person I was reading with, "Do you want to know who got it?" This was for a piece that Carol Burnett did with Ned Beatty called Friendly Fire.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a wonderful movie of the week. And I was auditioning with Mark McClure to play the brothers, to be one of the two brothers in in this thing, in this wonderful show. And at the end of the reading, he says, "Do you want to know who got it?" Well, I think you have to be pretty sadistic to ask actors, "Do you want to know who got it?" if it wasn't them.
No.
You really have to. And I don't think this guy was a mean person at all, but he asked that question. And we, of course, said, "Yes, we do want to know," thinking, how could he say anything else but it was us? And he said, "No, we'll call your agents." Well, between that and getting back to my apartment 15 minutes later, they'd hired the other pair. And it was devastating. So when Michael said, "Do you want to, what are you doing on the 15th?" And I said, we can wait another week. I was thinking, this can't happen to me twice. This can't, but it took, these readings were in March. The show was going to start shooting, or maybe it was early April, something like that. And it wasn't April Fool's Day, so there's no soft conspiracy there. It wasn't, but it was early April, and it took fully 2.5 weeks or so for the offer to come. And by that time, I was just sort of despondent, thinking, this is not going to happen. This has happened to me again. Are people really this cruel? And I just didn't want to believe that could be the case. So when the offer finally came, I was thrilled. And, I knew that this was special because Little House was at that time NBC's top rated series. I knew that it was for NBC, and NBC was not wildly successful in that time. So this was their top rated show. It was a top 10 show. So I knew that, and I knew it was Michael Landon, and so obviously that career was stellar, and I knew my agent would cry, watching me. So I knew that would be good. So, getting the chance to be on this, I just thought I was so thrilled. Gary, I had no idea starting this that I would be sitting with you and doing situations like this 45 years after the fact of starting this, still talking about this in this very real, visceral way. I mean, it happened a long time ago, but Little House is still very much alive in the public's consciousness. And it is one of the great family dramas ever produced. All of us who were a part of it were so blessed to be a part of it. It's just, look, was it a perfect experience? No, it wasn't a perfect experience. There were disappointments and things that maybe didn't go the way you would have wanted them to go. But when you look at the totality of it all, it's just been, it was an incredible experience.
How was Michael to work with him as a director and his involvement? What was it like working with him?
Well, see, Michael wore the 4 big hats that anybody can wear on a production. Michael was the star, he was the executive producer, he was the director, and he was the lead director, and he was the lead writer. So when you were dealing with Michael, you weren't dealing with just one person. You were dealing with 4 people. And the 4 people who had the greatest effect on what you were going to be doing in that situation. Michael had all the control. So there were great things about that, because Michael didn't have to argue with himself about what he wanted to do. He knew what he wanted to do. I mean, he was so crystal clear about what his vision was for Little House. And anybody who's watched it over any period of time can pick up the fact that Michael was so strong with the stories he wanted to tell and so consistent with that. So you had that wonderful skill set that was guiding it. But as a young person, and there's a lot to learn from watching that. There's no question. I mean, Michael was like going to film school every day. But at the same time, if you ever got sideways with the star of the show, you also got sideways with the director, the executive producer, and the lead writer. So you just were aware always of the enormous amount of control and power he had over every aspect of this. What you'd have to say is the outcomes creatively were more often than not terrific, and it was Michael's vision and his point of view about this that made that possible. There was no committee, there was no debating about what we were going to do. We did what Michael believed in and what he wanted to do, and the clarity of that vision is what makes the show so special. He was not trying to be all things to all people. He was very clear with me. He said, I know that there's fully, half the audience out there who couldn't care less about what I'm doing. But he also knew, and he was very solid on this, that there was another half of the audience that loved what he was doing. And so he was okay not trying to be all things to all people. He was serving the audience that he knew loved what he was doing. So that's what allowed the vision to be so clear and strong. He was not trying to be everybody's cup of tea, but he knew he was a certain segment of the audiences. They loved him and loved what he was doing, and he was very confident in that. That's huge. I think very, very hard to find creative people who have the autonomy in what they're doing to do their vision. That is not an easy place to get to. It's lonely territory to be in because it's all on you. I mean, and I can't begin to know in the quiet of Michael's thoughts what he had to deal with doing this. But I can tell you, Gary, I never saw a moment's doubt in his face. I never saw hesitation. I never saw anything but absolute total confidence that every step he was taking was the right step. Now, whether it was the right step didn't matter. I mean, everything wasn't perfect. He didn't make flawless decisions about everything, but boy, he made so many good decisions about this. And the audience loved what he was doing. The audience that loved him loved it, and they came along on a very dedicated level for so many years. And even after it was done, it's still out there today. It's still airing all over the world every single day.
And when you go to these groups, for this show, what type of response? How many people show up?
Thousands of people come, and we don't go to. What's sort of interesting about the way that we're doing this now is we're working with a promoter. A lot of our cast are working with a promoter named Jack Bishop, who runs a company called Gravel Road Productions. And Jack's business model is to go into smaller, underserved markets with us and with the Waltons and with other shows of a similar ilk, and people come out in very dramatic numbers. I mean, we see people in lines that are hours long. People coming to see us, to take a picture, to buy a picture, to take a picture, to talk about the show, to sign their books. I mean, I've signed hundreds and hundreds of people's books that are 30, 40 years old. This has been, Little House is a part of the fabric of people's lives. And it's deep. It's deep and it's strong and it's real. What they feel about it is very real. And it's Little House for so many people is like an old friend. I mean, a really good old friend that you know and you love and you trust, and you know what you're getting. And it's very, you made reference to this in your early opening comments, it's comfortable. You feel safe in the room when you're watching Little House. You're not wondering what's going to be coming at you. I mean, 99.9% of the time, you're not wondering what's going to come at you that might be a little uncomfortable. And look, there may be something to be challenged a little bit, but Michael wanted to be with us. He wanted to come into our homes. When television, Gary, in those days, television came into your house, it wasn't, there weren't 10 screens in people's houses. There were maybe 1 or 2 televisions. People sat in their family room, in their living room, or their kitchen, or wherever it was, or in their bedrooms where they watched television, and they watched this together. And it was very important to Michael that families could sit together in front of the television and watch something that they could know was going to be entertaining and was going to be, for parents in particular, he wanted parents to be able to know that they were going to be safe, and he wanted to encourage conversation between parents and children so that multiple generations would talk to each other. That was very important to him to do that.
If he was still alive, he would be so shocked to see how the show has still carried on. I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think he'd be shocked. He said to me, I was 25 years old, Gary. He said, people will be watching this show long after we're all gone. Now, at the time, I'm 25 years old, but when you're 25 years old, you're going to live forever. It's like there is no end, right? And it just seemed, that felt a little hypey to me, that, it's going to, I just don't know if I believe that totally. Now, 45 years later, at 67 years old, I totally believe it now, that people will be watching Little House long after we're all gone. And one of the proofs in the pudding is that NBC and other companies continue to invest in the program to bring it up to whatever the most current standard is. It has not been allowed to get old. It has been kept fresh. I mean, it never is going to change. But right now, what's out there is the most beautiful picture that Little House has ever had. It was restored in 2014 for the 40th anniversary. So the picture benefited from the most beautiful color correction technology that's out there. The show is more beautiful now than it was when it was new. And because just the screens are better and the color recreation is better And so it's just richer. Fixing the audio would have been a little more difficult. And to go back, and you're in the audio world, to go back, these things were all mixed down into a mono track. To go back to all those stems and try and recreate that, I mean, even if any of that still existed, that would be very challenging to do. But the picture is one thing. Go back to the negative, you can make it look beautiful again, and it is beautiful. And the audio was cleaned. There was noise reduction done on it, and some of that could be done. But the show is absolutely more beautiful to look at now than it was when it was new.
I've noticed that, and vibrant, especially with the high resolution TV screens and stuff. Our time has gone by so fast. And what is the name of the book that's coming out, and how long did it take you to write it?
So the book is called Prairie Man: My Little House Life and Beyond, and I started writing it on the 9th of January of 2023 and turned in the first draft to my publisher on July 31st. And next week I'm getting the final. It's all been laid out on pages now. It's ready to go, and I'll get to make, like, I can cross out a word here and a word there if I want to, but the book is set now, and it will come out on June 25th of 2024. So right in the middle of the 50th anniversary year. I'm very excited. Look, I have to tell you, I'm a little, because I think not everybody's going to like it. I mean, I think, I just sort of feel like people being people, and it's not going to make everybody happy, but I hope the intention was not to make anyone unhappy, but I just have this, you're hearing my anxiety about something that I've done and I can't change it now. So I'm having to live with what I've done now, and it's going to come out, and I'm going to have to face the music in whatever form it takes.
I got to ask you a question. Okay. Season 7, episode 2. Was that a real diamond ring that you gave her? She gave you back as the engagement ring, or was it glass?
I don't know, Gary.
I don't either. That's why I asked you.
And my answer is I don't know. Our prop man, Dean Wilson, who was a wonderful collector of all these antique things. I mean, he was just a brilliant, brilliant guy. Look, I'm sure it was probably a diamond because Dean would have done a diamond, but I can't tell you what grade of diamond it was or any of that. But so she gave it back, but she took it again eventually.
That's good. I do want to say thank you for keeping the cast members together, going in what you do, the podcast you do. You're keeping it alive, and we need that. And, I normally say to when you have ex-servicemen, thank you for the service for your country. But I'm going to say that to you because young people need to see Little House on the Prairie. Even people my age, I enjoy it. I'll be honest with you. I'm a night owl. So when I get off of my show late at night, the first thing I do is I binge watch TV, and I've been watching a lot of Little House on the Prairie.
Gary, thank you so much for that. And it's incredibly exciting to be in this 50th anniversary year. It's, it's an extraordinary, we're not alone in this world of getting to 50 years, but we're one of those shows that vibrantly, authentically gets to 50 years. And we are all incredibly proud of that. And I think the celebrations that we're going to be in this next year are going to be this coming year are going to be a real love fest. There's no question about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to try to get to one of them. My friend, you have a great weekend.
Thanks.
And again, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I'm sorry we didn't get too much conspiracy in, but really, this was a really nice conversation. Thank you.
Okay, and don't buy a car from our ad person, okay?
I think I won't.
Okay, my friend. You take care.
You too. Okay.
Okay, bye. Okay, we'll be right back here after our break. I tell you, I really enjoyed talking to Dean. Great guest. Again, check out, go on your cable, watch Little House on the Prairie. If you got young kids, get them away from watching zombie movies. Get them to watch real TV the way it's meant to be. We'll be back right after this, so stay tuned. You're listening to, Night Dreams Talk Radio.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with The Strange News. Time traveler shares photo from the year 5000. And it's not good news. The man, known only as Edward, claims to have evidence that humans are no longer land-based after he says he time traveled while working at a lab in Los Angeles. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Night Dreams brings on the night worldwide. Did you know you can find us on your favorite app? And now you can watch us live on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. And now, here's Gary.
And here I am, and I've been watching my producer eat all kinds of junk food during the show, knowing he knows that I can't eat nothing during the show, and I have watched him eat for the last, hour of everything. I'm surprised if there is a run on a grocery store because of the weather. He's going to starve to death because he probably ate everything in his house. JC, are you still eating?
I do not recall.
Boy. Well, who's our next guest?
Our next guest is Glenn Steckling. He's here to give us UFO updates. He's an author, and he's also he runs the George Damsky Foundation.
Did you get the food out of your mouth before you said all that?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Well, Glenn, welcome back to the show, my friend. How have you been, and what is the weather like where you're at?
Hello, Gary. It's good to talk to you and your listeners. And the weather here is absolutely lovely. We have midday temperatures, let's say in the middle to high 60s, and sunshine and clear. And in the evenings, it probably drops down to the low 40s or high 30s. It's our winter time, so we're suffering through that without a drop of snow or rain.
I tell you, it's so cold out here. Like JC mentioned when he first came on the air, our fish are frozen again. And, I can't understand it. I wish we could be frozen and thaw out and come back to life.
Well, I don't know if that'd be too comfortable. We're a little bit more complex organism than a fish or a reptile. So, we do all the best we can.
I don't know. I think some of the fish I have in my pond are smarter than people in Washington, D.C., namely the Congress, but don't tell anybody I said that. what's your gut feeling? What's going on? All these people, because I've been doing this so long, they email me, they call me, they say, oh, it's going to be such major. The president's going to come out and just spill the beans about UFOs. It never happens. Now, the last I read here 2 weeks ago or so, that they're going to seal everything for a period of, I think, 25 years. And at that point, it's up to the president if they going to seal it again. I mean, what's your whole take on this?
Well, first of all, there's no such thing as truthful disclosure. In my new book, one of my chapters, I talk about the entire phenomena of and kind of the scam of disclosure and why it isn't going to happen and where we went to already in the 60s with this. We already tried to get disclosure. Many of our prominent politicians, Barry Goldwater, House Speaker McCormick, Colonel Freeman, James McDonald, I mean, the list goes on, of people who wanted Congress to bring out the information, and I found out very quickly that Congress does not control the information. It's controlled initially by the Air Force, but primarily by the CIA, and the CIA just told them to bugger off. And it's not going to be any different this time. How could it be? And when they say that they're going to, redact it back for another 25 years, it might as well be 2,500 years. I mean, they keep falling back on themselves in their own line, and they do not want to disclose the truth, and they do not want the repercussions as far as the changes on this planet which would occur due to the truth. And so just like the Lincoln assassination that is in the time vault for another 75 years, and of course we won't even talk about Kennedy, I mean, all of that material is just locked away and you never get a chance to see it. And more importantly, the president doesn't have the classification to see these files. It is above his own classification as far as the secrecy level is concerned. And that's true amongst most of the people in the Pentagon as well.
Now, hey, Glenn, can you move that microphone a little closer there to your mouth? Just
yeah, right here. Does that sound better?
Just a little bit farther away, but yeah, that did help.
Okay.
There we go.
And so, people have this erroneous idea that just because you're a commissioned officer, whether it is a general or admiral or anybody else, that you have access to this secret information, and that's absolutely a false assumption. They do not have access to it. A very strict and limited amount of people have access to some of that. And in fact, I had a friend who was very high up in the FBI that pulled up my name because they wanted to do some background information, and the file was totally sealed. They did not have the classification to even get near that file. So, we have a false assumptions about many things. Disclosure is one of them. The whistleblower situation is another combination of yin and yang, truth and falsehood, and one has to be extremely careful to understand and know what pieces of it actually have substance to it and what other parts of it are total hogwash.
Well, I agree with you because, when I was watching these people testify to Congress, what we saw, I mean, some of it I think was, how can I say it? I wouldn't have trusted half what half the people said, honestly. I think it was some people out there that wanted a couple minutes of fame. And then there were some, I think, it really sincerely believed what they're trying to say. But again, I mean, I don't think they would have allowed it to be televised if they were telling really, the truth on all this.
Well, we have to understand a couple things. First of all, as these people admit themselves, they're not allowed to talk or publish or go in the public with any statements that are not already examined and authorized by the military controlling body, whatever services has to be, in this case, the Pentagon. So they're not going to allow you to say anything that they have not thoroughly redacted and gone through and vetted in order so that you say something that they find embarrassing or they don't want to talk about. So that leaves us with the conclusions that if these people are allowed to come forward, then they're coming forward with a predetermined program, a predetermined agenda that has been fed to them, and then they go out and sometimes perhaps in all honesty and believe that what they are saying is 100% true, where in reality, if you do a little research and you background this whole situation very thoroughly, you'll find out once again that there is the bait and switch. They give you a little piece of information that's correct, and then they give you a whole lot of other stuff that is tacked onto it that is not. And it follows, when you see information that follows the government agenda or the intelligence community agenda, then you know that this whole thing is being thoroughly manipulated.
Well, that's a good way to deceive the population, too, by doing that. At the same time, they're trying to give out information, but at the same time, it's disinformation.
Well, that's true. That's exactly right. It's like the internet. You can dump on it anything you want. Fact, fiction, truth, falsehood, whatever. It becomes just basically a garbage pot of everything that's thrown in there, and then the individual has to be extremely savvy and experienced in order to be able to go through there and then once again piecemeal pieces out of it. You look at Roswell, for instance. It has become thoroughly well known, so it's no longer deniable. So what happens is that they tell you part of the story and the fact that the ship crashed and that they were bodies and there were one or two survivors whom the military shot on sight. So there were no tangible survivors after that. All of them went into the coffins and off to Fort Worth and then eventually out to Wright Pat. Two of the bodies ended up in Walter Reed. And so consequently people are aware of that. And so now the government then tacks on all the other garbage onto it. Well, one was alive and then they ended up in Area 51. And all of that is a bunch of bull. Because first of all, there is no technology we either have now or will have for 1,000 years that is capable of keeping these people sequestered or prisoners successfully. So that's not going to work. And then the bottom line is their own compatriots would never leave them here, sort of like we have the Navy mantra that no sailor left behind. Well, they're not going to leave their people behind in this hostile environment world to be cut up like a laboratory frog and all of the nasty things that we love to do to each other and everything else we can get our hands on. And so what happens is, once again, you get those that stuff the tail end of the absurd onto it, often by people in this UFO community that haven't got a clue of what they're talking about. And so therefore they can feel that they have license to make it up because nobody can either prove or disprove it, or nobody is going to call them on the carpet on it. Well, maybe except me, because I call plenty on the carpet. But so consequently, it's a very safe method of operating both information and then the majority of disinformation and misinformation.
And I think the government really likes what's going on because you got these, I'll be honest with you ufologists that write books. There's some of them out there have 30, 35 books on the subject. And they just keep cranking them out like every month. They got another one. And I don't know where they come up with it. And I'm not going to say who the author is, but I happen to know that he actually asked somebody to lie. To fit into what he was writing in this book, and they wouldn't. Oh
yes, yes, I have evidence exactly of the same nature, of which he was told to. In fact, I'll tell you what they were told to lie about. They were told to lie about that there are dozens and hundreds of species versus several races, and so that person was told, well, that doesn't. If you say just races, then that doesn't jive with the rest of the stuff that we like to push around, which is a Star Wars bar theme or Star Trek, a movie sequence with horrendous monsters and bizarre creatures. So consequently, they leveraged him into changing that. And then afterwards, he was very regretful for having done that. And I can assure that to your listening public that there are not tens of or hundreds of different species visiting this world. That is not how biochemistry functions. And biochemistry is the universal equalizer in space that produces all life. And I listened to one of these UFO people tell the interviewer, and the interviewer was very suave and said, well, since the principles of life are universal and are throughout space, then why would it be any different for the evolution of life to be the same as it is here as it is on the other side of the galaxy? And that particular person just went, oh no, no, because they're pushing the creature feature agenda. And so once again, it is another bone of contention, of confusion. And it is the UFO community that creates the greatest confusion. And they are the ones that I address specifically in my new book, The UFO Reality, Can Truth Prevail? It is, I have went extensively in there. I believe that after over half a century in this subject, I am more than qualified to make the statements. And more importantly, I provided the photographs, the authenticity, the analysis of the photographs, and the full documentation of everything that is said in that book. Tell me and show me another UFO book that has anything close to that.
I don't think there is. And you know what really, Glenn, it really upsets me, honestly, is when I get a guess on it. It says, you know what? ETs would never do anything to stop, to interfere with our planet. They would never hurt us. If there was a nuclear war, they would never let it happen. And are they so stupid and naive? Because I go back to Cain and Abel. Let's go back to biblical times, right?
Yes.
Okay, what has the humans done from the very start? They killed each other, and they're still killing each other. Now, I can't believe that there isn't another race out there that maybe has that same breed in their DNA where they could be not these lovable creatures that everybody taught. We don't know what they are because we're not being told.
But we have to also accept some other realisms and truisms. In other words, if we use our own evolution and society as a backdrop, we have progressed from caveman through early societies, through medieval times, all the way up till now. And no matter how arduous the situation is, and or how many people we've exterminated in the process, we have also evolved sociologically, not at the same rate or congruent to our scientific knowledge, but we have advanced. And so we have to give benefit and agreement and acknowledgement where it's due. You cannot advance 3,000 or 4,000 years to the point where you can successfully travel the reaches of space. And that's what it is. These crafts that come from neighboring planets and neighboring solar systems are at least 3,000 or 4,000 years ahead of us technologically, which means that they have also increased in their social awareness, not only internally, but through their exposure to the many different societies and civilizations in the planets upon which they visit. So to equate them to some kind of barbarous creature is a complete falsehood.
No, I'm not saying that, Glenn.
I'm not saying that they're all 100% benevolent, but there is a status quo line upon which they are smart enough not to exceed. They have helped us deter 2 nuclear wars in the last 60-year history, and even Edgar Mitchell, the astronauts, made the same statement not too long ago. That information is also in my book. And so they come and they help us help ourselves. They do not interfere, but they come and they go to our leaders. At that particular time, they went to our president and said, listen, this is what's happening, and you had better take active agenda on this. Otherwise, the prospects can be nuclear annihilation. So this is called help, not interference. They will not fix our problems for us, just like I don't expect my neighbor to come over and clean my yard or pick up my garbage. I certainly wouldn't do that from anybody, expect that from anybody, let alone the advanced intelligence that I've had the privilege of meeting and interacting with. I know better than that.
Well, you know, one thing, too, we got coming up the end of February, the great-granddaughter of President Dwight Eisenhower on. And she's going to be talking about the meetings that the president had with the ETs.
Well, first of all, the first meeting happened in 1954. George Adamski met with President Eisenhower out in Palm Springs, and then they took a car trip to a military base that's further up north, in which it was prearranged of one of these bell-shaped craft would land on the tarmac, and the president would go in and interact with their human occupants. This story has been corrupted by a whole lot of unscrupulous people since that time. But he had meetings with human beings, and they gave him an opportunity and told him, we are willing to share some of our technology with you if you're willing to pull away from the nuclear program and nuclear bomb manufacturing. And he said no. Now, also, you have to realize this is 1954. So the granddaughter had no exposure to the actual events of what happened, and certainly would not have anywhere near the classification that would be required to even begin to open the cover of the file, let alone go through it. So there may be a lot of, shall we say, inventive fact-making going on there.
Well, it could be a lot of folklore from the family, you know, from generation to generation since that. But, you know, again, you know, even then, you know, there's all different talks when he met with the ETs that, you know, oh, we'll give you this type of, you know, technology in return, for example. Well, let us abduct people or experiment on. I don't know what to believe because, you know, it's so much garbage out there.
Gary, that's not the case.
I know
they would never. That was never an option to abduct people, to abuse people, to experiment, to collect RNA and DNA, to inseminate. These are all fanciful, fictional stories that have been manipulated by the UFO community in order to further the agenda of fear. And right now, since the 60s, since 61, when they took this whole situation to a different tangent, we have been working on the manipulation of fear. And that's what is being presumed and being promoted these days. When Kennedy went out there with Adamski in 62, he went out, met there in Palm Springs area and Desert Hot Springs, went to a different military base. The craft landed on the tarmac. The Attorney General was also present, and there was conversations being held, and George carried a White House access card that allowed him into the administration and the White House to the underground entrances anytime he felt it was necessary. And he showed us the card. I have seen it ourselves. And so, you know, this once again, there is this vile promotion of the creature feature and the horrendous and horrible and bizarre that is being promoted in order to keep everyone fearful. That's another reason why that is being pushed for disclosure, because we don't want to change this state of fear that we continue to operate in and economically grow in. And so that has nothing to do with that. And I will go face to face with any person who claims otherwise.
Do you think, too, the government likes it? Because someday down the road, who knows, they might want to create a false flag. And they're setting us all up for it.
Well, I think they've been creating a false flag for the last 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to continue to run with that false flag for another 2 or 3 generations. That's why they have stopped the term UFO, because they know that over the many decades that has been associated with unidentified flying object, or more importantly, a direct translator into extraterrestrial spacecraft. So now they use UAP because they hope that they can delineate and draw a line for the future generations to accept a new term which they don't know much about and not pre-associate it from where it came from. This is another form of misdirection.
Well, yeah, I mean, now they use it for drones. The balloons that China sent over to actually film and photograph our military bases. That's come out. But the news media, the government hyped it up because, coming out from the White House, they use the word UAP. People think, oh my God, they're UFOs. And, they do all this to confuse the people.
Well, and look, and if they want it really honest about disclosure, one of the first Navy films that was taken by our Navy jets off the carrier was in 2006. Well, we're coming up on nearly 20 years thereafter, and you're telling me that over 20 years they can't figure out what's going on? No, they keep passing the buck. It's like going to Vegas in a card game. The cards kept getting shuffled, and the best cards keep getting put back to the bottom of the deck, and that's exactly what they're doing now.
I got to ask you a question, and you don't have to answer it. Bob Lazar. Now, I got to know John Lear pretty good before his passing.
I knew John very well, too. I used to fly airplanes with him.
Yeah, and, he told me about 2 weeks before his passing, he came kind of clean on a couple of things. He said Bob Lazar didn't back engineer. For years, John Lear, said that, Bob Lazar back engineered, the propulsion systems of UFOs. Now, the 2 weeks before he passed, he said that never happened to me.
That's true. It didn't. It never happened. They did not back engineer. At least those particular people did not. There are a number of people who came through that era, and I can name them as well because I have I've been exposed and associated with a number of them in the many UFO conferences and events that happened over the last 30, 40 years, and their statements are incorrect, to put it politely, and so it is another bait and switch going on. Have we back engineered some of it? Yes, we have, absolutely, and we have used and built our own type of ships. Anything that's triangular, anything that has appendages, anything that's acorn shaped. These are our own manifestations, our own crafts. They are not capable of going past the moon. And so consequently, we have back-engineered some of the electromagnetic principles and allows us to go and transport both people and materials to the moon. If you remember Colonel Curacao, he talked about his Pentagon higher up, the general, and they talked in 1957 about Project Rainbow, that in the next 10 years, from 57 to 67, they would establish a lunar base with 20 permanent residents, and that they were successful. They had done so, and this had caused a great deal of dissent amongst our Apollo astronauts when we got there, because it was not the first step for mankind. We had been already there before, and we didn't even bother to tell our own people. So there was a great deal of disillusionment among those that had orbited and had walked on the moon, because we have two different kind of space programs. We have two different sources of information. We have the public one, which is basically NASA. And I ask people, I say, how is it that you do not believe a word the government says, and you do not believe a word the military says, but both of those institutions are in charge of NASA, which is the single voice that is giving you information on outer space? You swallow that hook, line, and sinker, but you don't apply the same principles to them as you do to their own founding directors.
Now, I got to ask you a question. You being a pilot, former pilot, my father was an electronic engineer. He designed, when Boeing's was going to make the super transport, my dad was in charge to come up with a lot of the electronics for it on the mock-up and stuff. And that's what he's created. And, I asked my father back then a couple of times, do we have the technology to go to the moon with the electronics we had? And my dad looked at me and he said, I'm going to be honest with you. No. I don't know what your feeling about that is.
Well, I can only tell you that from the development, whether the development of the telecommunication systems by Maurice Chatelain, who wrote the book, Our Ancestors Came from Outer Space, and he categorizes every single space mission with every astronaut, and they all witnessed UFOs in close proximity or flying along the craft and flying with them to the moon, even piping music into the command module. So when you look at if you go to the Smithsonian and you look at the electronics package or the technology that was available for the Apollo, I think that it was well proven already from Mercury and then Gemini around the orbital phase and the docking phase around the Earth, and then through the initial Apollo missions going to the moon and just orbiting the moon, not sending down the LEM. I think that our technology was sufficient to get us there. I think it was a 50-50 crapshoot.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, everybody likes to point fingers at the astronauts. These people, had some immense courage because they basically strapped themselves to an unknown time-release bomb that was going to take them into orbit, and some of them, of course, didn't make it. And so one has to have a great deal of courage and a great deal of excitement in order to go beyond this world and to learn what's going on out in space and give us a perspective of how things are on this planet as well. We have learned so much about our own world, whether it's weather satellites saving us billions of dollars in forecasted impacts of hurricanes and typhoons and saving lives. And the list goes on and on and on. We have done nothing but received tenfold the benefits that we spent in order to go into space. And unfortunately, most people don't know that or recognize that, because I hear so many ignorant people saying, well, why are we spending a penny in space when we can use it better on the ground? Well, we can see how well we're using it on the ground. How many billions in Ukraine? How many billions in arms and weapons in the Middle East? The reestablishment of nuclear testing? I mean, that's sheer lunacy and insanity. So I'd rather spend it on space anytime.
It's interesting. Yeah, again, too, what do you think's going on? Do you think we're going to be going back to the moon in the near future? I know that we're probably there now. But I mean, to the public, are they going to mislead us again and think, oh, we're going to go back to the moon?
Well, yes, you're right. In the first statement, we are already there. We have lunar bases. There are photographs of some of the craters where these constructions are in. Some of those pictures are not only in my book, but also in my father's book, his first one from 1981, We Discovered Alien Bases on the Moon, and which we also make available here at the Foundation and on the various book vendors. But the idea here is that the moon is ripe in minerals, gold, silver, titanium, helium-3. I mean, literally, it is a wealth of raw materials upon which we could build and manufacture a great deal. And since the moon represents a gravitational factor not of 1/6, but of 60%, that 40% differential is enough to make launching and construction of our own space vehicles easier as well. And so it becomes a very great observation post for what's going on Earth, and a very great launching vehicle to go further into the solar system. So I think that with more and more countries getting involved in lunar exploration and photograph, we become more and more forced to release some information. We first said that there was water on the moon in 1971. Then we just shut up and didn't address the issue again until the 90s. And then when the Russians and the and East India and China went there and said, "Oh yeah, we found plenty of water too," did we finally then recapitulate and admit to the same thing, the arm twisting method? And so we are using. We don't tell the people that there's water on the moon, that there are placid temperatures. Recently, the study was released where they have Goldilocks zones on the moon and deep craters where the temperature is a constant 63 degrees. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, it varies, which is a very amiable temperature. So you got water, you got atmosphere, you got a decent temperature. Then you start to get solar wind movement, the movement of the flag had to do with solar wind and the ISO bars that are traveling along the weather systems of the moon. All these people that claim, oh, well, we didn't go to the moon because the flag moved or this dude or this dude, they haven't got a clue of what they're talking about. They're literally just talking out of their rear ends in order to talk.
Well,
but there is so much about the moon that has been revealed that we need to take the next step and bring it out publicly enough so that our children actually learn something of value and not 50-year-old dead ideals.
Yeah, garbage. That's what they're learning. Just recently, again, they announced here just a couple of weeks ago, they found pockets of water on the moon, under the surface. Also, they found volcanic activity in the moon.
Oh, yes, they've had volcanic activity for a long time. These are the same things that they found on Mars. In 1963, George Adamski wrote and printed that Mars has large quantities of salt water. Oh, and they laughed and they said, oh, this old coot and this and that and this and that. Well, it wasn't but 2 years ago when we admitted that Mars has large quantities of salt water. And so, once again, it is we have perpetuated the denial phase on everything, and that whether that's politics when you get caught or anything else. Deny, deny, deny. I'm always innocent even though I'm blatantly guilty. Deny, deny, deny. And this is a method of operating in which our whole society is becoming totally engulfed with.
Well, yeah, it keeps, I don't know. I'm just getting more frustrated as, again, I get dozens of emails a day about what's going on in disclosure. And, again, there's so much garbage being fed out there and people are buying it. And the fact is, we're not alone. We already know that. I mean, the universe, the galaxies, and the system out there is so vast. The odds are we are the only intelligent life. I can't buy that one at all.
Well, no, you can't. First of all, we don't act intelligently, so somebody's got to be more intelligent. But if we just look at historical record, whether we look at all the ancient societies everywhere in the world, in Tibet, the first 7 kings have written to be able to have come from space and were able to travel back and forth. You have the Polynesians, you have all the South Pacific Islanders, the South Americans, the Incas, the Peruvians. The
Mayans.
There's Mayans. You can't, Egyptians. You can't mention a single ancient society that doesn't have a recognition of space visitors who have come to help them, not to terrorize them, not to abduct them, not to have them for lunch. They came to help them, to show them a better way of life, a better form of agriculture, to help them in the methods of alchemy, and to increase the scientific potential of their civilizations. This has been going on for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years. Only the academics of today who love to do anything and debate, always debate and tear it down and try to find other obtuse reasonings. They are more involved in science fiction than science fact.
Now, hey, Glenn, we got a caller that has a question for you. And what am I going to do with my 36 cases of barbecue sauce for the Martians when they come to invade Earth and eat us? I don't know. Kim, what city are you calling from?
I'm calling from Higginsville, Missouri.
Okay, what question do you have for Glenn?
My question is, we have water on the moon. We have decent temperatures on the moon. is it possible that we could be growing food on the moon?
The answer is absolutely yes. In 1955, when George Adamski was taken in a spaceship and he was flown around the moon, he described everything he saw. First of all, the firefly effect in space that was not reported until 1963, May of 63, by John Glenn with the Friendship 7, the Mercury craft. He described volcanic activity. He described the different colors and textures of the moon. If you look at a color picture of the moon, and occasionally you can see one, but they're not very well promoted or advertised, but you can see areas of green, of red. So consequently, yes, you have water, you have air, you have temperatures that is going to promote the growth of life. Life is everywhere, as we well know. And so all of the life that comes to planet Earth came from space. All the amino acids, all the RNA and DNA, all the fundamental elements of organic life rained down on this planet. In fact, it still continues to this day, about 2 tons worth of that material. That is what developed life. But more importantly, it has also rained down on the moon and all the other planets in the solar system. And as we travel through space, like a comet, we trail these organic materials out of our atmosphere behind us. And as our orbits mix with the other planets, they too get pieces of our material. That's why when you go to Antarctica and you dig out a meteorites and you dig out material, you find that it is originates from Mars. So we are sharing this material, and this material creates life no matter where you go, period. They're here, the other side of the cosmos, on other planets, everywhere. And we continue to misinform the public about how the evolution goes. Like, for instance, we tell the people that the solar system is 4 billion years old, and that the Earth is 4 billion years old. And of course, so are all the other planets 4 billion years old. And then they tell you that life originated on this planet half a billion years ago. But then they tell you some kind of cockamamie story of how 2 billion years ago they had flourishing life on Venus or Mars, and then all of a sudden it turned around and went the other direction. Why would evolution come to fulfillment on those planets in half the time it does here, and then suddenly reverse itself? This is nothing other than academic mumbo-jumbo. People who need to have something to print, something to facilitate their titles, and continue their university positions.
Kim, that was a good question. It's true. And you think about it now, the late John Lear also, numerous times on my show said that basically there's a lot of bases on the dark side of the moon.
Yes, that's true. In fact, it was my father's book in '81. We discovered alien bases on the moon. Was part of the triage of the initial lunar anomaly investigation. The first book, Somebody Else is on the Moon, by George Leonard. Then in '79, my father's book in '81. And then in '83, Moongate by William Jennings Bryan III. And so my father and John talked oftentimes. Unfortunately, John was a publicity hound, and he would run with whatever publicity would get him on the camera or in front of the public whenever he could. And so he joined the anti-moon movement and saying that we never went there. So I said, John, you know better than that. And in fact, I will be seeing you in Laughlin. I think it was in '96. Him and his daughter and I met in the cafeteria there because we were both speaking, and I brought all the original 15 by 11 Hasselblad first generation copies from the Apollo missions that I have in the safe. And I opened it up, and we started going through there, and I said to him, now tell me we didn't go to the moon. And he says, this material is irrefutable. And I said to him, well, why do you continue to promote that we didn't go? And so to be part of the in crowd, and I have never been, nor my father has ever been, part of the in crowd in order to corrupt information to mislead the public. To me, that is the most horrendous, a dishonorable thing to do, to purposely mislead people who are wishing to find out the truth of life and visiting intelligence and how we can have a better existence on this world before we do something terrible to us. Why is it that we can't embrace that? And so John and I remember he said to me when we had our first flying mission together, I was his co-pilot at that time on the Lockheed L-1011, and he says to me, once we get up and away, he says, well, when we get to the layover, I'm going to really want to pick your brain. And I said, well, you might not like what you find. And so we sat for many hours and talked, and I knew John well enough, and more importantly, I knew what he was talking about, so I was able to just dissect what he was saying. When I visited him in his house, he said, well, I talked to a guy that was the cement truck driver that went out to this secret base out here in Nevada that looks like a giant step mining outfit. And then the bottom, you drive through a secret hole into a secret facility. And this guy described all of that, and I stopped him and I said, John, you know better than that. I said, you know military protocol better than that. They are not going to let some schmo who's a truck driver, a cement truck driver, drive into an ultra-high secret facility and see things that are not for them to see, and then they'll let them walk away. I said, you know that is garbage.
Well, I'm going to jump in here. I had a guy on 4 or 5 years ago. It claimed that he was a truck driver that would take stuff to one of these secret ground bases, and he would back in, and then they would surround, his vehicle with armed guards, and they said, if you turn your head, we'll shoot you. And I would think if they were bringing stuff in, supplies, whatever, they'd be using their own people. They wouldn't bring some trucking firm in to bring in stuff.
And more importantly, just like if you go to a restricted military base, you deliver it to the front gate. Their own people are waiting at the front gate. You get out of the truck. Their people get in the truck, and then they continue it into the secret facility. They're not going to expose themselves to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. I mean, this is just common rationale and common procedural logic. It's like the people who used to work for the government and now tell you, well, now they can come clean and they can expose when they were first debunkers, and there's a few of these names that were out there that you know as well as I do. And so when you work for the military to debunk something for 20 years, you just don't suddenly do an about face and come out of the closet and start going the other direction. You have signed paperwork, the Military Secrecy Act, that is for life.
Well,
when somebody says to you that they are that has expired or has gone away, that's a load of bull. That secrecy paperwork and your signature is for life.
Okay, couldn't they? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they can actually call you back in to the military and court-martial you and put you away for the rest of your life too, can't they?
That's true. In my book, I put the clause in there that states the government law that states that if you talk about this subject and they are dissatisfied with what you have to say or how you say it, they can pull you into military court, not civilian. You don't get lawyer representation. You don't get any phone calls. You go before the tribunal. They decide your fate, and they can lock you up for as long as they want, and or
disappear,
fine you $10,000. Now, if something supposedly doesn't exist, how can there be a law to enforce it and also a fine to make you pay by saying it?
Yeah, how about some people totally disappear too?
Well, yeah, that has happened because we have conducted experimentation on our own people. Whether they're abductions, they're not alien abductions. I'll make that plain and clear right from the get-go. We abduct our own people. We have forcibly used abducted labor to go and help build our military bases on the moon and other places. But these people never come back. It's a one-way ticket. If you remember the brain drain of the late 60s, where many prominent scientists, both from the Western and Eastern Hemisphere, and their families, totally disappeared from the face of the earth and never been heard of since. That's because they were recruited and taken to these installations.
Yeah, and when they were done with them, they were done with them.
That's it.
I will say this. I mean, people don't think the governments don't do anything. They do. You know, back in the 60s, they dumped radiation over a couple of cities to see what effects it would have on the population. Back in the 60s, they gave kids toothpaste, which was irradiated, to have kids go home and brush their teeth with it, to come back 3-4 months later to have these people, which everybody thought they were dentists, check their mouths over really good.
Well, it gets worse than that. Already before D-Day in World War II, Eisenhower, Monty, and Churchill ran a mock invasion on the east coast of England, and they used live ammunition. So basically, they ran the profiles for this invasion, and they used live ammunition, killing their own soldiers and writing off the casualties as part of the later D-Day and Normandy and Omaha Beach events. So that's just one of the uglinesses by World War II. We can go back even further than that if we want. Also, when we had the first atomic explosion, we dug ring trenches around the White Sands at certain parameter distances and put our Marines and military soldiers in those areas to see what would be the effect of the nuclear explosion and radiation on people, on our own military service people. I even knew a guy who was part of that. And you're right. The CIA used LSD experimentation on prisoners, and then we flooded the systems of New York with radiation and gases, and also in Utah, tens of thousands of livestock, whether it's cattle, sheep, poisoning the underground water. The Atomic Energy Commission, and this section I also put in the book. I highly suggest if people want to have a real exposure to the facts, that they read that book. But the Atomic Energy Commission got caught trying to cover it up, and thousands of these animals were irradiated and were mutilated, and that has nothing to do with animal mutilations from spaceships. That had to do from our own biological and radiation experiments.
So I got to jump in here too. Glenn, let's be honest with you. I've been doing this a hell of a long time. I've interviewed literally thousands of people on this subject for the 50-some years I've been doing this. Now, let's look at it realistically. If ETs were coming down and abducting people, right, and taking their DNA and experimenting on people, opening people up, doing stuff, prodding them, and all this stuff, just to collect DNA and eggs and whatever. Okay, I'll have my eggs, by the way, sunny side up. But anyway, if you think about this, why would they? Because they could clone DNA. After they got it, they don't have to keep coming and abducting people one after another constantly for all these years.
You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And this is what I tell people too. The technology to build spaceships that are tens of miles long, to travel the distances between systems and galaxies and what have you. If they put that ship in orbit around this planet, their technology allows them to focus a beam on any individual. They can record your thoughts, your actions. They can record your entire biology down to your subatomic level by sitting in the salon in front of the big screen TV having a nice margarita. They do not have to leave the comfort and safety of their spaceship. They do not have to come down and grab. I mean, you examine 5 cows, you tell me that the next 50,000 cows are going to be any different. This is all part of the scare tactics that our own intelligence community has invented.
Now, there's that, Glenn.
And too many UFO personalities have happily jumped on that bandwagon so that they could get prominence, marketing, and
make money. Now, we got another caller. I think we have Tom from Everett, Washington. Tom, are you there?
Yes, sir. I have a question for your guest based upon everything that he knows and everything that he's experienced. And by the way, he sounds like a highly learned person. With everything that's been going on with fear tactics especially during the last 70 years, my question to you is this. With the erosion of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and with more and more of this type of corruption that you see worldwide, what do you think our chances are of surviving the next decade?
I hate to be pessimistic because I think optimism is one of our strongest characteristics, because optimism drives us to conduct ourselves and to promote ourselves in progressive manners that can change the outcome. There is no such thing as a future that is set in stone. What happens is there's too many variables and too many tangent directions that can be gone on in order to redirect the motions that we have set ourselves on. If we choose to put a particular venue and then refuse to change it and refuse to alter ourselves based on the negative inputs of that venue, then we can say through trend analysis that we are following a particular course that could lead to a very destructive conclusion. I personally, and this is just my personal opinion, even though I am active in this field for all my life, and I try to give people a sense of hope and understanding, I don't particularly have a great deal of shall we say, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't have a great deal of hope for the future of our civilization.
That's scary.
I think what happens is that we're reaching a point geophysically and solar systemically. So what has happened is our solar system is going into its disintegration phase. And slowly but surely, as the sun disintegrates, and it can happen in 1 million years, 10 million years, or it could happen tomorrow. But the two phases of the Earth, which is the 26,000-year cycle and also the 12,000-year cycle, and then the solar polarity shift of 11,000-year cycle, when these things starts to coincide, then we have conditions that mime what happened during the Great Flood. And have to remember that the Great Flood is not originating from biblical records, because the records of the flood already far exceed that. The time of Gilgamesh and other times in history was long before the Old Testament. So we have now, about 60 active volcanoes.
Glenn?
Yes?
We need to take a break for the station. Can you hang for about another 20 minutes?
Always, you bet.
Okay, let's do this break and we come back. And also, I got a couple questions I got to ask you when we come back too. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Now is the time more than ever to get that hometown water. Freshly recycled with that great recycled taste you will love. Just ask any smart person you know.
I love hometown water, and I'm a what word is this? Rhodes Scholar.
While you're getting that great tasting water, get a fresh brick of that great tasting, meaty Soylent Green, made with real, recycled, man-made, we're not kidding, meat. That's always great tasting and good for you. It's endorsed by everyone.
Hello. As a 100% real female woman, I happily speak on behalf of all genuine non-male women-style ladies and say these recycled, easy-to-drink and eat products are totally great, and if you don't buy them, you'll be struck down and sentenced to eternal damnation. Thank you.
Recycled hometown water and recycled meaty Soylent Green man-made man meat is available at in the 38 states with no common sense where this is still legal. Your nearest farm fresh markets. Pick some up today. Night Dreams Talk Radio would like to say a big thank you for listening to Gary and his guest. Gary brings back paranormal talk radio like you remember.
And we are back with Glenn. You know, I gotta, again, I think we're just being fed so much garbage. You know, again, people want to make money. And again, there's so many people writing these books about about disclosure, about UFOs, abductions, cattle mutilations, all this stuff. And it's so much garbage out there. And then you got people who deny that Roswell ever happened, or people I've had on the show, well, I don't want to talk about Roswell because that's old. It doesn't count. Well, if you want disclosure, I think that's the best disclosure we have ever had coming out from anywhere, a military source, that yes, they came out and said we had a crash UFO. Even if they changed their story very shortly after, we at least got something that came out that was more promising than anything we've ever got since then.
Yeah, let's do two things here quickly. Let me finish Tom's question.
Yes, go ahead.
The planet is going through geophysical change. The correct term is geophysical change, not global warming. For most people, they do not understand. They think that global warming means the entire sphere, the entire environment gets warmer, and that's not how it works. What is warm gradually becomes colder, and what is colder becomes warm, like we see in the poles and the melting of the poles. This changes the linear wind, polar jet streams, and environment, and so the Earth is going through an entire shift as far as its environmental atmospheric pattern. We are not the cause of that. We are contributors to it. So, for instance, nature maintains a pendulum of balance. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. And so as that pendulum swings, nature has enough momentum to bring it back towards a neutral position. The problem is, as we start adding more weights by our actions to one end of the pendulum, nature has a harder time trying to swing back. So while we contribute by 400 billion tons worth of pollutants every year into the environment, and that's not even talking about the ocean. That comes from China and India and Africa and many of these other nations. Nothing we could do in Western civilization can offset that. There is no carbon tax like those poor fools in Canada now who pay 6 times the carbon tax in order to try to offset that. These are just venues for the politicians to spend more money on the other things they want. So there are active volcanoes. You see more active earthquakes. You see more active tsunamis. These are all planetary items that are showing the significance of the changes that we have going through. The last one of these shifts was 12,000 years ago when the so-called biblical floods came about. But also the sun is going through this, and it's becoming more and more unstable. And so there is a great more of geophysical retribution going on than we are aware of.
Now, Glenn,
so
I want to...
In Tom's case, it is the changes of the planet which eventually may have dire consequences for the civilization, because in the past, when these changes occurred dramatically, 80% of the population perished.
Well, I was talking a month ago I read an article and I called up the University of Washington and talked to a professor about the Earth's magnetic, if it flips. He said that we're being fed a line of poo-poo, that if the magnetic flips, we're going to be in a major problem with the population.
Well, we're going to be in a major situation. And in fact, he better check his poo-poo scale, because when they did core samplings in Central Europe, they found that many thousands of years ago, the North Pole, the magnetic North Pole, was in the middle of Europe, and that these poles changed positions. At one time, the Antarctic was free of ice, and it wasn't the South Pole at all. And so, once again, I tend to look at the academics with a critical eye, because all they are doing is reciting what somebody else said in the book, and they are great mimes of other people's work, where we do less and less field work and less actual experimentations than just simply copying other people saying and slapping it together in a book in order to reach academic acclaim.
Well,
but the idea here is the Earth is changing, and we are building cities like Mexico City sits on an immense volcanic bubble there with Popo, the volcano ever active, and it has erupted and has decimated at least 3 civilizations on that particular spot. There are archaeological remains of 3 civilizations due to those disasters.
Now, Glenn,
yeah.
we got a caller. Let's take this call real quick because she's been holding for a while.
Okay.
Caller, who do we have, and what city are you from?
Hello?
Yes. Who do we have, and what city are you calling from?
Oh, my name is Deborah Everling, and I am from Santa Rosa, California. And no, I'm in Sonoma County.
Okay, your question?
My question is how, if he could, regarding the book, his book.
Go ahead.
And how to order it.
There's 2 ways to get the book. One is directly from the publisher. The publisher sets the price and prints to order the book and then ships it to you. That publisher is blurb.com, BLURB.com. And then in the search engine, you just type the beginning of the title, the UFO reality, and that'll take it to the page. I also have a few of the books in stock myself. So if people want to order it through PayPal, through me, then I can take care of those orders as well. My PayPal account is G like golf, S like Sam, S like Sam, C like Charlie, A like Alpha, L like Lime, 737 at gmail.com. And once they order the book, which is $30 plus shipping, domestic media shipping is $4.65. And if you happen to live overseas, then of course, then they really stick it to you. It is $28.50 to send a book internationally.
And
so those are 2 ways to get it at this particular point.
Now, do you have a website too they can order it from?
They can see it on the website. The website is Adamski, ADAMSKI Foundation, all one word, .com, and that will take you to my website, and you will see the big book advertised there, and then you can go through ordering it through email.
Now, here's one thing the professor told me, that he said 95% of the population would be wiped out within a matter of hours.
That's true. That's absolutely true, because if you look at it, the majority of our high-density cities are all on the coastline. New York, all of Florida, Boston, Los Angeles, Seattle, all these places we locate right on the coastline, and better than that, not only on the coastline, but right on active earthquake fault zones, whether it happens to be San Andreas or anything else. I mean, we're so stupid, we built Diablo Canyon in San Francisco right on top of the active earthquake line. And so these will cause a great deal of problems. I mean, if you think about it, one 500-foot tsunami wave has enough energy to go about 5 miles inland. And it's not just the water that's destructive, it's all the debris that is torn down and carried along by the water energy that tears up the rest of the infrastructure as it's pushed along as well. I mean, so nature is quite dynamic, and it is not it is not a personality involved. It is not good, bad, different, or any sin or no sin, or whatever religion tries to poison your mind with. It has to do with the geophysical structure of the planet. And we should learn that. That should be part of our education process and not the junk that they're being taught in school.
I'm going to jump in here. Kim, I got to say something to you. She's on chat. From what I was told, that the waves that would come in even if you lived in the middle of the United States, you're going to be seeing water, and that at the same time the wind is going to be so you wouldn't want to live if you did live. Put it this way.
Well, it wouldn't be ocean water. What people don't understand is that the underground water will come through to the surface. The ocean water will not flood all of the existing continental construct, but the underground water will push through the surface and flood that surface. And so all the desert regions will be underwater. The mountainous regions like the Rockies and some of the other things will be high enough as to still be sticking out. And so once again, the geophysical changes are numerous and various, and not just always the obvious. There's a lot going on. There's rising and sinking of continents, including continental drift. It's just not tectonic plate movement, but there's rising and sinking of the land masses, both in the ocean and otherwise, that are supported by massive gas belts that are underneath the superstructure of the crusts. And so a lot is going on, and if we would understand that, we would not only have greater recognition of the place that we live. It's like our own home. You know where the faults are and where the good things are and what needs to be fixed and what doesn't. But the most important thing is we would be having a vibrant and active space program in order to be able to transport populations off this planet in case these particular changes happen quicker than we thought.
Now, could that happen on Mars, and could we be the Martians?
Well, there were changes on Mars, and there were some evacuees that went throughout to other planets as well, and so I think that there is evidence of not only past but current civilizations on Mars. When you look at the book by Hertog and Crawley, The Face on Mars, and Petrie and Molinar, the computer pixel examinations of the face on Mars and the pyramids in Cydonia, you will find that Mars is not a dead planet in any way, shape, or form. And it always surprises me because they say, well, the helicopter or the drone we sent there is flying around taking photographs. And then in the same breath, they tell you that supposedly the Martian atmosphere is 100 times thinner than Earth. So this equates mathematically into two various obvious things. One, either the propellers of the drone are rotating 100 times faster than they would be on Earth in order to become airborne. The average drone revolution is 4,000 revolutions per minute, so that would be 40,000 revolutions per minute, or the blades of the helicopter would have to be in variance up to 100 feet longer in order to create enough momentum and enough lift to get airborne. Since neither one of these are the case, that's telling you that the Martian atmosphere is thicker than what we're telling the public.
We're being lied to. We got another caller, and then I'm going to ask you if you have one or two, UFO reports or something, and we'll then wrap up the night. Who do we have again?
This is Tom.
Yeah, Tom. Go ahead.
Well, my question, based on everything that your guest has said, and I really like what he is saying, you make me think that from everything I've read that there is a real case that the continent of Atlantis actually existed and could have been a part of that great biblical flood that you talked about.
That's an absolute correct statement. When Plato talked about the island of Atlantis being beyond the Pillars of Hercules, that's exactly where it was. And remember, this is where information that he got from the ancient Egyptian libraries and scholarly centers that existed long before the invasion of the Roman Empire. And so what happens is that, well, all our scientists, they're digging around in the Mediterranean because they refuse to accept the fact that continents can rise and fall. So therefore, they're not even looking out in the Atlantic. But yet, every so often, you do get some reports off the coast of Tenerife and the Azore Islands. The fisherman comes across a giant pyramid underwater, as big or bigger than the one of Cheops in Egypt. And off the coast of Spain, already in the 50s, going down with the bathysphere, they found in 4,000 feet cobblestone highways. And then off the coast of Cuba, a whole series of ancient megalithic structures in deep water off of Cuba. And then, of course, we know about the highways in Bimini. That is just the Atlantis. The other part of that is the Lemurian part. And since you're up there in Oregon, part of a segment of Mount Shasta was also a remnant of the Lemurian continent. And then it stretched all the way across the Pacific, including the Hawaiian Islands, Easter Island, all of the Samoas, and all of that area that... in fact, if you look at Colonel James Churchwood's book, The Children of Mu and the Lost Continent of Mu, you will find a great deal of information, true information. And even though his grandson is doing everything in his power to destroy his grandfather's reputation, because he's not only a military guy, but an academic guy, and he hates being ostracized from his friends, so he's decided to bash and to negate everything that the grandfather did over 100 years of research in ancient India and all these other places. You will find a very good explanation of Mu and Atlantis. And in fact, Marcel Homais, who is a Belgian anthropologist who wrote the book The Sons of the Sun and On the Trail of the Sun God, he surmised that the Amazon jungle was once an submerged sea, and that along the circumference of the sea is where the ancient civilizations would be built, just like we build our cities along the edges of oceanic constructs. And so he went up to the area of Rio Negro, and he found the area of Piedra Pintada, which is the painted rock, and he found the same hieroglyphs that were given to George Adamski in 1952. And he's the one who discovered his in Brazil in 1963. And in fact, you may see the picture. I know you'll see it in the book. You may see it on our website. They compare the two together, and they're about 80% correct. And the South African engineer by the name of Basil Vandenberg used those symbols, translated them, and built a electromagnetic free energy device, a motor. And so the whole construct of our ancient societies, in a way, the Mayans were remnants and survivors of Mu, and the Egyptians were survivors of Atlantis, and Greece was a survivor of Atlantis. The sad thing is the entire history of this planet has been corrupted and continues to be corrupted. There was the anthropology director in Yalta who found rock carvings in the caves that easily predated so-called prehistoric man. And he was encouraged by his colleagues in the British Museum and other places to go in there and chisel them off the wall so there would be no embarrassing explanations needing to be had. Just like the water engineer who discovered that the Sphinx in Egypt, the base of it, is eroded by water.
Yeah, it was underwater, yes.
Underwater, which makes them over 25,000 years old. And when he took the pictures of the bottom of the Sphinx and showed it at the National Organization of Geologists and Hydrodynamics, every scientist in the room agreed that it was water erosion until he showed them the wrecks of the picture, and they were all stunned into silence. And immediately the Egyptian government started to take tiles and retile the bottom of all the Sphinx they called it restoration.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it was obliteration so that nobody would question, because they want this history to be solely their accomplishments and their honor. And they don't want to talk about the fact that they were constructs on the locations where the pyramids were built, and they were built on top of it, and that civilization was much, much older than any of them want to recognize. And that's what makes me sad. It makes me sad that you have to spend a lifetime trying to find out the nuggets of the truth, when that we should be told that already when we first go to school in first grade.
Well, Glenn, we're out of time, but you know what? We're lied to. And we're being continued to lie to. You know what? It was cover-ups on the Finks. You know that. They covered it up because they don't want the people to realize that this planet has been rebooted. And they don't want the people to know that. They're deceiving us right down from UFOs down to a lot of different things. Again, can you share your website before we sign off the air?
Yes, it's adamskifoundation.com. You will find a great deal of material on there. Enjoy it. I think we covered the bases. It is not an entertainment website. It is informational and educational website. You can find my new book, The UFO Reality, Can Truth Prevail, at blurb.com, or you can go through and I have a few copies that I can sell as well, and I've ordered some more. So either way, I highly suggest you get that book. I have worked decades on it, and I think it has given people answers. I strive over my family and George Adamski. We strove to give people truth and answers, and no more of this mysticism mumbo jumbo.
Okay, Glenn, I have to let you go. We'll be talking to you again, in a couple of weeks, and you have a great weekend, and thank you for coming back on.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you to all your listeners. I look forward to it.
Okay, we'll be right back right after this for a wrap-up of the Tonight Show. Again, it's been a great show, and I want to thank all you guys out there listening. We'll be right back.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network Newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the Strange News. Man dies following bizarre chicken attack. The story out of Ireland. Authorities say that a man died following a violent attack by a particularly aggressive chicken. The strange incident reportedly occurred last April at Jasper Krause's home in the town of Ballinasloe, and came to light this week following an investigation into the truly odd case. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Well, JC, I don't know about you, but I'm ready for chicken tomorrow after that. I tell you what, if a chicken is going to attack us, maybe that's what's going to happen. But I'm going to get back to this one thing. I don't want to alarm anybody, but what this professor told me is when the magnetic flip happens, then they don't want the public to know because they would panic. Here's the three things that's going to happen. One, the Earth will actually stop its rotation and reverse. Two, when the magnetic flips, we're going to see water, like Glenn said. It's going to come out everywhere. The oceans are going to flood inward. The water, it's going to be, and as the Earth stops rotating, it's on 99.9% of the people buildings are going to be gone. Your house is going to be gone. Your dog and cat are going to be gone. And the neighbor you don't like down the street will be gone also.
Well, common sense tells you anything that's as big as the Earth spinning at about 24,000 miles an hour comes to a sudden halt. There's going to be some consequences.
And it's about time for the flip, too. That's what he said. It could happen any minute now. So be nice to your family members and tell them, you love them, because we never know. The sun is doing weird things. There's another big rip about 100 sizes of Earth that ripped open just the other day again in the sun. So we're getting hit with that. I mean, a lot of things are going on. And then we're being deceived by the government about, the UAP thing. I don't want to call them UAP. I'm going to call them UFOs on this show because that's what they are. But, we're being lied to. And we're going to be continued to be lied to. And if the people want to keep writing 31, 35, 36 books on garbage, because that's how they make their living, they're doing more damage in ufology by putting out this bullshit. I'm calling it what it is, BS.
Yeah, well, people are going to be people. They're never going to change or stop, and that's unfortunate. But it is what it is. But you know what? You got to sort through and do your own fact checking. And listen, common sense, you got to have it. You just got to have it.
And again, you know what you ought to do, too, this weekend? Spend some time with your family, pop some popcorn, get some, something good and healthy to drink, and sit back and put on Little House on the Prairie. And have your young ones, your grandkids watch it, because it's certainly better than somebody, shooting vampires or whatever it's going on TV right now. I can't watch mainstream TV anymore because I can't digest the garbage they're putting out. I mean, I literally have nightmares when I watch this stuff. I mean, it's, going back from the Night of the Living Dead to what they got now. I mean, what we're going to go, JC, what's going to happen in the next 10 years if we're still here is we're going to have a lot more killers walking on the street because they're not going to think anything of it. They don't like that person, bang, because they're conditioned on what is being put on TV and put on these cable channels because people are eating this stuff up.
Well, Gary, there's going to be pretty much like you're saying, a whole generation. It's in the works. These kids from a young age watching the shows that are on now, for the next 10 years, 20 years, they're getting dumbing down. They're getting conditioned to it. So they're not going to be very empathetic for other people, like you're saying. They could just walk up and just kill somebody or have no empathy for anybody. Somebody, jaywalks on them, run them over. It's nothing to them. They're conditioned to it. Doesn't bother them.
Well, again, too, I'm against video games, too. And the reason why I can say this, I lost one of my sons out of the two because he was obsessed with video games. And while he was playing these video games with his friends, sometimes to 24 hours long, he would drink energy drink one after another, and he had a seizure. And then he ended up having epilepsy from it, and then he had a grand mal seizure, which killed him. All this because he was playing video games, drinking energy drinks like it was going out of style. We didn't realize how bad it was. And you know what? Get rid of that garbage. If you have a young kid, I would honestly, give them a good book to read. Do something. Spend time with them. Teach them how to play football, baseball. Take them out hunting and fishing. Do that. But I tell you what, between the horrible TV shows, the movie shows that's coming out, and video games, our society is going into the crapper.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I say, they're getting so unconditioned to have no empathy for anybody. By the time they're in their late teens, early 20s, it's a whole different generation than what it was when you or I were young.
Well, I grew up watching Donna Reed, Father Knows Best. I mean, shows like that, to what you do now. I mean, I really enjoyed having Dean Butler on tonight, talking about his acting career, a little bit about Little House on the Prairie. I mean, I really enjoyed that. There were shows like, good shows, good, clean shows that you could all sit with your family members and watch it and not worry about somebody getting murdered. I don't know. Who's our guest next week on the show?
Hey, next Wednesday, we have Mark Cushman coming back on. He hasn't been on for a while, but as you know, he's an author. He was a screenwriter. He's got some kind of inside information on a lot of TV shows from the back when.
And who else do we have?
And then on next Thursday, we have Andrew Bashago coming back on, the time-traveling lawyer. Going to talk about some different time slips and Mandela effects.
Yeah, I can really tell you a lot about time slips. And then who do we have on Friday?
Next Friday, we have Ruta Lee coming on, world famous. She's been in more movies and TV shows you can think of, but she's been on it from the 60s, 70s, 80s on up.
Yeah, So I hope you're enjoying our new format of the show. Yes, like Dean Butler. I was really getting a kick out of him. I don't know if you were seeing him, JC. I don't know if you watch it. He was getting a kick out of the show. We could have probably talked the whole show paranormal with him. You know that.
I know. I talked with him even today. Really nice guy, because, a lot of these people, they don't really want to be bothered. But he was really nice, very sociable. You could talk to him. Really nice guy. Well,
a big shout out to Tom, to Kim, to December. And boy, there were some other people here on chat too. All the people on chat and on Apple Chat and iHeart and all that. I just want to say thank you. I got to get my producer on some of these other chats because I'm going crazy. I got all these monitors here, and I'd actually monitored 2 other chat lines. And Messenger too. So anyway, till Wednesday, everybody have a good one. Hey, JC, who's your guest on Monday?
Well, who is my guest? I know Tuesday my guest is going to be James Gaynor. Monday my guest is going to be George Lunsford. That's who my guest is Monday, and he's going to be talking about paranormal and ghosts and all kind of good stuff.
Okay, well, everybody have a good weekend, and tell your family you love them. We'll catch you on the other side, so everybody take care.